So the Blu-ray boutique label Severin Films just released a new Gothic Horror box set, DANZA MACABRA Volume 3, the Spanish Gothic Collection. Yeah, last year Severin released two Italian Gothic box sets, DANZA MACABRA Volumes 1 and 2. I reviewed both of them here on the channel. The first one I was pretty positive on, the second one not so much. But the third one came out, I went ahead and bought it, I watched through all the movies. Let's talk about it. What's going on, my friends? Welcome again to the Cobwebs channel. My name is Daniel, and yeah, I watched all four movies located in this absolutely beautiful box set from Severin Films, and I wasn't sure if I was going to keep getting these Gothic horror box sets that they've been putting out, because despite the fact that I love Gothic horror, like I love Universal Monsters and Hammer and Mario Bava and Vincent Price, love all that stuff. The first box set I was 50-50 on, but the two of the four movies that I liked, I really liked. So overall positive on it. Volume 2 I did not really like. Despite liking one of the movies, I thought it was overall a miss of a box set. And I wasn't sure if I was going to keep going, but I got this honestly because it's a Spanish Gothic collection, not Italian. That was different. That was new. I was interested. And I've also been getting into Spanish Gothic films lately, mostly because of Paul Naschy. He was an actor, writer, director back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s who made a lot of really cool Spanish Gothic films that I'm a big fan of. And I knew none of these movies had Paul Naschy, so I wasn't confused about that, but I was excited to dive deeper into Spanish Gothic. Plus, all of these movies have absolutely beautiful cover art. So let me go ahead and show them all to you. We've got Night of the Walking Dead.
The desires of God are inscrutable, but if you believe in him, you must also believe in the devil.
Necrophagous.
No, it's Lexter! No!
Cross of the Devil. And Cake of Blood. Like, oh my gosh, these have amazing, absolutely beautiful individual cover art. And like, even look at the spines. Look how cool they look. I mean, if you're just a fan of spooky time, Gothic horror, this cover art is just really going to do it for you. So I was super interested in checking out these movies. I watched them all. So in this video, I'm going to tell you what they're about, what they're like, what I think of them, and maybe you'll get an idea if this box set is for you. So we're actually going to kick off with what they are calling disc 4 in here, but it's just the movie that I want to talk about right now. And that is The Night of the Walking Dead from 1975. This one has the option of watching it in English or Spanish. Technically, both ways are dubbed. That's just the way they made movies back in these days. I started watching in English. I thought the English dub was awful, like low quality sound, low quality actors, really schlocky. I went over to the Spanish dub. It sounded much better. So I recommend this one in Spanish. And I was excited about this movie, one, because it's got awesome vampire cover art. I mean, my gosh. Look how cool that looks. But also it's directed by a guy named León Klimovsky, who was a frequent collaborator with Paul Naschy. He directed movies like The Werewolf versus the Vampire Woman and Dr. Jekyll and the Werewolf, so he made some really cool movies with Paul Naschy. And this one's also starring Emma Cohen, who co-starred with Paul Naschy in Horror Rises from the Tomb. So a lot of people I like, but did the movie hold up? Well, it takes a little bit for the plot to really get going in this movie, and I was not so sure about this film for a bit, because it just felt like kind of low energy, not super competent, and really sleazy. In fact, I would say of the four movies, this is the only one I would describe as sleazy. It really is, at least for like the first act. But once the plot really kicks in, and Emma Cohen really emerges as our main character, I ended up being really interested in her. She is a terminally ill woman who is very depressed, sick with something, we don't really know what, and she knows her days are numbered. She knows she's going to die soon, and she's in love with a man who is not being faithful and is not really being true to her during this time in her life. Enter a handsome vampire named Rudolph de Winberg. So this movie's alternate title is Strange Love of the Vampire, and honestly, that's kind of a more descriptive title of what this movie is. This is a vampire romance film between a vampire and a terminally ill woman. A woman who is like attracted to his world of death because she feels on the brink of death all the time. And his killing people doesn't really affect her morally because, again, she just feels so close to death. And her just being drawn in by him and his whole world of vampires, he's like a village of vampires, traveling people that he leads, is so interesting. I really like movies that are about somebody getting drawn into the vampire world. Not like Twilight. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about stuff like Subspecies 2 and 3, like that kind of a thing. And this movie really is like a romance film. and it makes Rudolph sympathetic, a sympathetic vampire for sure, but it doesn't shy away from the darkness of vampires because it is a dark and violent thing being a vampire. People do die horribly in this, and all of these movies have good atmosphere. That's the most consistently good thing about the films in this box set. But this one, I think, has the best atmosphere. A lot of really cool vampire moments, like people rising out of the dirt in graveyards, vampires coming up to people's windows through fog. It's all that really classic vampire imagery you want. There's so much of it in this movie. So if you just want to see good gothic vampire vibes, this is a good movie. I thought Emma Cohen was really good in the lead. She's very sympathetic, kind of haunting, and you just feel bad for her the whole way, and you still like feel for her as she starts to do some horrible things towards the end of the movie, as she gets drawn in by vampires. And it's got a really impactful ending. So I thought this was really good. Now, admittedly, I didn't get to a ton of the special features in this set, but this one does have a commentary by Kat Ellinger. It's got some interviews. It's got a video essay about Spain's cinematic vampires. And all of these films have an appreciation by this guy who's the head of programming at a film festival. His name is Angel Sala. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it. I watched most of his segments. I didn't find them super insightful, but I don't know. That's just me. Maybe I'm just not on his intellectual wavelength and I didn't get his nuance, but I didn't find his stuff super interesting. Next up, let's talk about this insane movie, Necrophagous. What? And I didn't actually know how to pronounce that until I watched Angel Sala's appreciation that's on here, of course. This movie's from 1971. You've got the option of watching it in English or Spanish. I watched it in English because I actually thought the English dub was solid. And what this movie is about is... Okay, I'm gonna do my best. So the movie is about a guy who comes home to his hometown and finds out his wife died. And he's trying to figure out what happened to her. People are being very standoffish about what happened, and he's trying to investigate. And some things come to light, like about a mad scientist and some kind of creature in a graveyard and stuff. Okay, this movie... I don't want to be too dramatic in my videos. I really don't. Like, the nuance is important. Not everything is the best thing ever or the worst thing ever. A lot of movies are just okay. But I think Necrophagous is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. I thought this thing was awful. Like, so bad. I mean, so boring. So slow. And the plot really never forms. Like, it's so shapeless and aimless, and it just meanders. And I just never got a good sense of what this movie is really about. It's got so many characters. It starts off with that guy trying to figure out what happened with his wife. But he doesn't stay the main character. The movie doesn't really have a main character. It's just got a lot of different characters. A lot of women who look the same.
You shouldn't ask me any more questions.
Then whom should I ask?
Ask your other sister-in-law. Or their mother.
And I had so much trouble telling them apart. I never really got a good sense of telling them apart. For a while, you'd follow some woman, and I just didn't know what her relationship to anyone was, what she was doing in this movie. It's incredibly confusing. When I read the quotes on the back, because all of these have really praising quotes on the back, and this one says, it's a truly surreal viewing experience. And when I saw that, I thought, oh no, this is going to be dream logic nonsense, isn't it? And yeah, it's nonsense. But you're saying, okay, Daniel, this movie can't be that bad because look at that monster on the cover. Oh my gosh, that looks so freaking cool. It's got to be a cool movie, right? No, this cover art is an absolute lie. Absolute lies. I actually think Severin has hired a new cover artist. I don't know who it is because I've seen several of their new announcements and stuff have a similar cover art to these. This isn't a lie. This tells you what's in the movie. But Necrophagous and one other of these are just straight up lies. Nothing that even looks remotely like this ever shows up in this movie. You do get a monster at the very end. I was shocked how bad it looked. And I am generous to old monster movies. I like practical effects. I like guys in suits. I like makeup. I like puppetry. I love practical monster effects, even when they're schlocky, even when they're unrealistic. But this thing, I could go to Spirit Halloween and get something better. If Spirit Halloween was open, I'm really excited for when it does open. But it's one of the worst things I've ever seen. I couldn't believe that they tried to get away with it. And this also has disc art. Look at the zombie on that. There's nothing like that in this movie. Like, you're not going to see that either. I don't know what movie that is from. It's not from Necrophagous. This movie has alternate titles, Graveyard of Horror and The Butcher of Benbrook, and it's got some special features. It's got a commentary from the host of the Nasty Pasty podcast. I can't imagine what a commentary for this is like, but good on you for giving it a shot. I didn't listen to it. I thought this movie was horrible, and I really hated every minute of watching it. It's the worst movie I've seen this year, for sure, easily. No, let's talk about that one next. Let's talk about Cross of the Devil. Now, this one is from 1974. It's in Spanish with English subtitles, so there's no English option. In fact, apparently this is the first time that this movie's been officially available with English subtitles. Apparently there was like some fan-created subtitles in the past that you could get a hold of, but this is like the first official release that a non-Spanish speaking person like myself could actually watch. So I do commend Severin for that. I think that's very cool. It's directed by John Gilling, who's one of my favorite directors of Hammer horror films. He directed really cool films for Hammer, like The Pirates of Blood River and The Reptile, and one of my favorite horror movies of all time, The Plague of the Zombies. So seeing him just direct another movie, I was so excited. And this movie's written by Joaquinto Molina. And if you don't know who that guy is, that's Paul Naschy. That's Paul Naschy's real name. So Paul Naschy did write this, and apparently he did write it intending to star in it, of course, but something happened. He got kind of screwed out of it, and he ended up suing and winning something of a settlement, I think I read. He kind of got cut out of the production for this, so he didn't end up getting to be in the movie, but he did write it, and I love Paul Naschy, so I was super excited to check this out. And this also has Emma Cohen in it from Night of the Walking Dead and Horror Rises from the Tomb. It is the unofficial, sometimes referred to as the unofficial fifth entry in the Tombs of the Blind Dead series. The Tombs of the Blind Dead is a series of zombie films kind of based around the Knights Templar legend that came out of Spain back in the 70s. And I feel kind of funny talking about this movie because I didn't know that going into it. Because I've never seen any of the Tombs of the Blind Dead movies. I know. It's actually kind of on my list of videos I want to do. I do want to watch all those movies and do a video on like my first reactions to them. But I've still never seen them. But now I've seen this unofficial entry. But apparently that's kind of unfair because it's just another movie based on the Knights Templar. Maybe it was kind of made to capitalize on the Tombs of the Blind Dead success, or maybe they just wanted to make another Knights Templar movie. What the movie is about is it's about a guy who finds out his sister died, and he goes to that town where she died and tries to find out what happened. It sounds kind of like Necrophagous, doesn't it? Except this time it's with his sister, and he brings his girlfriend along to try to figure out what happened. What the movie is it ends up being kind of a road trip movie where him and his sister's husband, his dead sister's husband, and his servant, they all get together and they decide we're going to travel to this place where she died and really find out what happened. So it's kind of a road trip, and it's really boring. I'm just going to tell you, I was really disappointed in this movie. It's really, really talky. I saw that criticism of it a lot when I was like looking at Letterboxd reviews. And sometimes I don't like the criticism of calling a movie talky because I like dialogue. Like I like talking in movies, I don't have a problem with that. But the dialogue is not interesting. It's not terribly well written. It goes on and on and on. And this movie felt so long. It's only about 90 minutes. It's 97 minutes long. But it felt crazy long. Like at one point I checked the timestamp while I'm watching it and I'm like, how long have I been watching this? Like, is it almost over or something? And I was only halfway through and I couldn't believe I'd only been watching it for 45 minutes. It felt like 2 hours. And this is another example of the cover artist just straight up lying, because look at those ghostly zombie figures on the cover art. Oh my gosh, that art is so cool. Yeah, you don't see that in this movie. You do get like the Knights Templar zombies, but they don't look anything like that. They look terrible. They're just these guys in knight outfits, and they've got like skull masks on, but they're really low rent masks. Like, again, you could get something much better at Spirit Halloween. It kind of just looks like just a plain sack, and they just kind of drew skull things on it, on the faces. That's what it looks like. And they're only in like one brief scene at the end, and then the movie's over. So, yeah, I don't hate it, but I don't know, maybe I do hate it. It's not good. It's really not good. I think Paul Naschy dodged a bullet by not appearing in this movie. Good for him. It's super boring. So as far as special features, it's got a little featurette about the legacy of Gustavo Bécquer, who is some kind of he's known as like Spain's version of Edgar Allan Poe, and he's talked about a lot in this. Apparently Paul Naschy was very fascinated by him. His stuff is difficult to get English translated, so I think an English-speaking person like myself would have a hard time getting a hold of his stuff. But it was kind of an interesting little history, so I thought that was kind of an interesting special feature. All right, so let's go ahead and go to the last movie, which is Cake of Blood. Now, when I got the box set, this is the one I was the least interested in because I just didn't know, what is this movie? Cake of Blood? What a terrible title. All the rest looked more obviously exciting to me. But then I found out that this is an anthology, and I love horror anthology films. I reviewed a lot of them on my channel. I love just getting a bunch of short, scary stories together into one movie. Oh, so great. So this is from 1971. It is in Spanish with English subtitles, so you don't get any English options here. But basically what this is 4 different filmmakers got together, made 4 different short films, and put them all together in one movie. So there's no cohesion to it. There's no wraparound. It's 4 different voices making 4 very different things, and then just throwing them together. So you just watch a series of 4 different short films, and that's the whole movie. The first segment takes place during the Middle Ages. It's about a traveling knight, and I believe the woman he loves is in a coma. And it's very like artsy and kind of ethereal and doesn't have much plot, doesn't make a lot of sense. And by the end, I believe it's some kind of a vampire story, but ends on a very strange note to some kind of weird version of a vampire. But it's very slow, very little dialogue, and it's just trying to be very, very artsy. I wasn't a big fan of it. The second segment is a Frankenstein story. It's called Victor Frankenstein. It's a very strange take on Frankenstein, where Frankenstein is this awful guy who marries Elizabeth because it was his mother's dying wish. And then he sends the monster, who just looks like a pretty boy. He doesn't look like a monster at all. He sends him to the house to go destroy everybody. And it's very, again, very weird. And the things that the monster does are so strange. But it's interesting. Like, I was kind of fascinated. Like, what is going on? What is this? And then it goes into the next segment, which is about early Christians in Roman times, ancient Rome, encountering vampires. And this one doesn't have much story to it. And it's kind of weird that they threw together like ancient Rome, early Christians, and vampires all in one thing. But it kind of works. And the vampire imagery is actually really cool. It's got some really good vampire moments in it. Ends on a very strange note, you know, but good vampire stuff. And then the last segment is about these guys who kidnap this woman, hold her hostage. And according to the back, what it describes this, apparently that's a ghost story. I didn't really get that. I did not get that segment. Like, by the end of it, I did not understand what really happened. So it's kind of an interesting horror anthology. It's not really what I would call entertaining, and I didn't love it. But I wasn't as bored as I was with the last 2 movies. So I was like interested. I'm sure it helps that it was just 4 different stories. So that kind of kept the pacing going a little more. So am I overall positive on this box set? Not really. I mean, I think it was an interesting experience. I love the cover art, even though 2 of them are lying, especially this one. Like, I don't even know where that image came from. But, I mean, I don't think I can get rid of this box set because I loved this movie and I think I need to keep it. Should you pick up this box set? I don't know, probably not. But if you're super interested in Spanish horror, you probably already got it. So that's my review. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you're picking up this box set. Give a like and a subscribe for more videos like this. Thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate you all so much. And with all that said, don't forget to enjoy yourself today. Have some fun, and I'll see you next time.